For a moment, time stopped. The bustling city sounds faded to nothing. It was just her, my ex-wife, standing there, frozen, her mouth slightly open like she was staring at a ghost. But it wasn't a ghost. It was me, finally living as my authentic self for the first time in years. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't recognize me. Not after my transformation. But that moment didn't start here. It started the night my entire life fell apart. For years, I lived the life everyone expected me to live. Scott, the dependable banker. Gray suits, black coffee, the same desk, the same routines. Reliable to everyone, except myself. Until the day Jennifer said the words that broke our marriage. "I can't do this anymore, Scott. We both deserve better." And she was right. That day, I decided I did deserve better. That very day, the old me began to disappear, and I started becoming the person I was always meant to be. This is the story of how I went from living a life that never truly fit to discovering my identity, embracing my inner feminine side, and finally living authentically. A journey that began with heartbreak and ended with the moment my ex-wife looked at me and couldn't even recognize the person I had become. At home, I was the husband Jennifer thought she wanted when we got married. I paid the bills on time, mowed the lawn every Saturday, watched football on Sundays. I thought I was checking all the boxes. Provider, protector, the steady presence every relationship needed. But Jennifer started pulling away about 2 years into our marriage. At first, it was subtle things. She'd go to bed earlier, spend more time on her phone, make plans with friends without mentioning them to me. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd just say, "Nothing," and change the subject. The arguments started small, but grew into something I didn't recognize. She'd accuse me of being distant, of going through the motions. "You're like a shadow of the person I fell in love with," she said during one particularly painful fight. "It's like you're not even here anymore." I didn't understand what she meant. I was there, I was present, I was doing everything a good husband was supposed to do. But looking back now, I realized she was right about one thing. I wasn't really there. Not the real me, anyway. The divorce papers came on a Tuesday. I remember because I was reviewing a mortgage application when she handed me the envelope. She'd already signed her name in that careful handwriting I used to love seeing on birthday cards. I wanted to fight for us, but deep down, I knew she was right. We were both going through the motions of a life that didn't fit either of us anymore. The apartment felt like a mausoleum after she left. Too quiet, too empty, too beige. I'd walk from room to room, picking up random objects like they might tell me how to feel normal again. It was while I was going through boxes in our old shared closet that I found them. Hidden behind winter coats I never wore, pushed to the very back corner. Shopping bags I'd forgotten about. Inside were dresses, shoes, a small makeup palette. Things I'd bought for Jennifer 2 years earlier but never had the courage to give her. I remembered that day clearly now. I'd been walking past a boutique window and saw this flowing lavender chiffon dress that seemed to shimmer in the light. For reasons I couldn't explain then, I imagined how beautiful she would look in it. I went inside and bought it, along with matching shoes and some lipstick the sales associate recommended. But every time I planned to surprise her with them, something held me back. Fear, maybe, or the nagging feeling that she might ask why I'd chosen such specific items, such particular colors. Eventually, I hid them away and forgot about them entirely. Now, alone in my empty apartment, I held that lavender chiffon dress up to the light. The fabric was softer than I remembered. Without thinking, I found myself wondering what it would feel like against my skin. The thought terrified me, but it also felt like the first genuine emotion I'd experienced in months. I told myself I was just curious, just processing the divorce in a strange way. But when I slipped that dress over my head and saw my reflection in the bathroom mirror, something inside me shifted. The person looking back at me had softer lines, gentler curves. For the first time in years, I looked alive. Not like Scott the banker going through the motions, but like someone who might actually have something interesting to say. I stood there for 20 minutes, just staring. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from recognition. That first night, I barely slept. The dress was hanging in my closet like a secret that wanted to be told. I kept glancing over at it, wondering if what I'd felt was real or just my mind playing tricks on me. The next evening, I found myself reaching for it again. This time, I tried on the shoes too. They were a size too small, but I didn't care. I practiced walking around my apartment, feeling the fabric move with each step. It was clumsy and awkward, but also exhilarating. I started watching online tutorials on makeup application, telling myself it was just research. Just understanding what Jennifer might have wanted. But late at night, when the city was quiet, I'd practice contouring and blending, learning to bring out features I'd never paid attention to before. My sterile apartment began to change. I bought flowers for the kitchen table, colorful throw pillows for the couch, art for the walls. Colors I'd never considered before started appealing to me. Deep purples, emerald greens, warm golds. The space that had felt like a tomb slowly came alive. The real breakthrough came 3 months after. I'd gotten confident with basic makeup and had collected a small wardrobe of dresses and skirts that actually fit. On a Saturday morning, I made a decision that scared me more than anything I'd ever done. I was gonna go outside. Not far, just to the coffee shop on the corner. But as myself. The real me I was discovering piece by piece. I chose a simple black dress, minimal makeup, and comfortable flats. My hands shook as I applied lipstick, but my reflection looked calm. Determined, even. The walk to the coffee shop took forever and no time at all. Every person who passed by felt like they were staring, but when I actually looked, they were just going about their lives. The barista smiled and called me miss when taking my order, and I felt this warm rush of recognition flow through me. I wasn't Scott the banker in that moment. I was just me. Finally, authentically me. Over the following months, these outings became more frequent and more natural. I'd go to bookstores, art galleries, parks. I started noticing how differently people interacted with me. Conversations felt more genuine. Strangers would smile more readily. I realized that when you're truly comfortable in your own skin, it radiates outward. I joined online communities of people on similar journeys. For the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel alone. These were people who understood the courage it took to show up as yourself when the world expected someone else entirely. My confidence grew with each passing week, but there was still this shadow in the back of my mind. Jennifer. I wondered what she would think if she could see me now. Would she laugh, be angry, feel betrayed? Part of me desperately wanted her approval, while another part feared it might destroy everything I'd built. 6 months into my transformation, I thought I had found peace. I was living authentically, making new friends who knew and accepted the real me, and feeling more alive than I had in years. The anxiety that used to follow me everywhere had mostly faded, replaced by a quiet confidence I'd never experienced before. But Jennifer's presence still lingered in my thoughts like an unfinished conversation. I'd catch myself wondering if she'd somehow been right about me being a shadow of myself, but not in the way she meant. Maybe the person she'd fallen in love with was never real to begin with. Maybe I'd been playing a role for so long that both of us forgot it was a performance. I found myself rehearsing conversations we'd never have. In my head, I'd explain everything to her calmly, rationally. I'd tell her about the journey of self-discovery, about finding peace with who I really was. In those imaginary conversations, she always understood. She'd apologize for leaving, maybe even ask if we could try again with this new honesty between us. But reality felt much scarier than those fantasies. The Jennifer I knew had very traditional expectations about relationships, about masculinity, about what made a person acceptable to be seen with in public. I couldn't imagine her embracing this version of me, no matter how much happier I'd become. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, my phone buzzed with a message that made my heart stop. Hey Scott, I'll be in town next weekend for my sister's wedding. Could we meet up? I think we need to talk. Jen. I stared at that message for an hour, reading it over and over. We hadn't spoken in almost 8 months. No calls, no texts, just lawyers handling the final paperwork. And now she wanted to talk? My first instinct was to panic. What if she'd somehow heard about my transformation through mutual friends? What if she was coming to confront me? But then I realized something important. I wasn't the same person who'd been afraid of her judgment anymore. I'd built a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who cared about my happiness. Still, the thought of seeing her again brought up emotions I thought I'd processed. Guilt, longing, fear, and underneath it all, a desperate desire for her to understand that I was finally the person I was meant to be. I spent that entire week going back and forth about whether to meet with her. Part of me wanted to stay safely in my new world, protected by people who already accepted me. But another part knew I'd never fully move forward until I faced this last piece of my past. I decided I wouldn't change who I'd become just to make her comfortable. If she wanted to talk, she'd have to accept that she was talking to the real me now. Saturday afternoon, I met up with a group of friends I'd gotten to know through the community. We were planning to grab lunch at this little cafe downtown and then maybe browse some shops. It felt like a perfectly normal day. The kind of day that reminded me how much my life had improved. I was wearing a midi-length floral dress with a light cardigan, comfortable but put together. My makeup was subtle but polished. I felt confident, happy, surrounded by people who genuinely enjoyed my company. We were walking out of the cafe, laughing about something ridiculous one of my friends had said, when I saw her. Jennifer was across the street, standing perfectly still like someone had hit pause on a movie. She was staring directly at me, her face cycling through emotions I could read even from that distance. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked almost like shock. My friends kept walking, still chatting, but I'd stopped moving entirely. For a moment, we just looked at each other across 4 lanes of traffic and 8 months of silence. I watched her process what she was seeing. Her eyes took in the dress, my hair, my makeup, The easy way I was standing with my group of friends. This wasn't a costume or a phase. This was clearly someone comfortable in their own skin. Then she did something I didn't expect. She started walking toward me. My friends realized I'd stopped and turned back with concerned looks. "You okay?" one of them asked quietly. "It's my ex-wife," I said, not taking my eyes off Jennifer as she crossed the street. They immediately understood the significance and formed a subtle protective circle around me, not blocking her but making it clear I wasn't alone. Jennifer approached slowly like she was afraid any sudden movement might make me disappear. When she got close enough for conversation, she stopped about 3 feet away. "Scott?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. She looked completely lost, like someone had just told her the sky was actually green and she was trying to make sense of it. But then I remembered all the nights I'd felt lost too, all the years I'd spent trying to be someone who made sense to her, instead of being true to myself. I lifted my chin slightly and looked her directly in the eyes. "Hello, Jennifer." Standing there on that busy sidewalk, with my friends beside me and Jennifer staring like she'd seen a ghost, I realized this moment had been inevitable. All those months of wondering what she'd think, all those imaginary conversations, all that anxiety about her judgment, it was all leading to this. I'd thought finding my authentic self would be the end of the story, that once I was comfortable with who I really was, the past would just fade away and stop mattering. But looking at Jennifer's face, seeing the mixture of shock, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite identify, I understood that this was actually just the beginning. I'd found peace with myself. I was living my truth, surrounded by people who loved and accepted me exactly as I was. But the person who'd shared 5 years of my life, who'd married the version of me I'd been performing all those years, was standing 3 feet away trying to reconcile the person she'd known with the person I'd become. What happened next would change everything I thought I knew about moving forward, about closure, and about whether the past can ever truly stay in the past. But that's a story for part 2. What do you think Jennifer said next? Trust me, you won't see it coming. Leave your predictions in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.